So my name's Joey. I'm an elder here at Hope Church. I also have the privilege of being on the teaching team. And I love that I get to do this sometimes. My life is crazy, and sometimes I regret saying yes to teaching on a Sunday because I end up crying on Saturday night trying to pull all this together. And then somehow the Spirit does something, and here we are. And I actually text Eric earlier this week, and it's like, hey, man, I think it's going to be a short one. And that was honestly just an excuse of mine because I didn't have the time, or I didn't choose to take the time to delve into this because life's busy. And we're going to talk about that a little more today, just how the busyness, how the distraction, how the hurdles get in the way of us being intimate with God, having a relationship with God. So this week, mine was just work, man. I run a coffee shop. I also am a director at a nonprofit that works with the homeless in downtown, and sometimes I don't sleep for days on end. And I texted Eric, and I was like, dude, it's going to be short. Make sure you have extra songs in the bank. Let's like flood this place with the Spirit because I don't have anything to say. But it ended up being a 10-page sermon, so I hope y'all are okay. I'll read pretty fast, so I think we'll be all right. But over the last couple weeks, if you haven't been here, we started a series on prayer. We're 2 weeks in. The first week, my wife, Cameo, opened the series discussing prayer as our inheritance. How many of y'all were here the last couple weeks? Good. I was hoping my friend Molly was here today. There she is. I told her I was going to call her out on stage because she missed the last 2 weeks. But I didn't see her hand go up, so I didn't think she was here, but it's because she wasn't here the last 2 weeks. So these recaps are for Molly because I'm sure all of you were paying attention the last 2 weeks and you remember exactly what we talked about. So Cameo opened us up with prayer as our inheritance, and she talked about how fear and shame seem to surround and create obstacles in our prayer life. But that as believers, we have bold access to God through Jesus. She emphasized how prayer is eternally tied to our inheritance as children of God. And we should be encouraged to approach God without fear, knowing that He is a good Father who provides us out of His love. And she just walked in, and I'm going to tell an embarrassing story about us, and I was hoping she wouldn't be in here. So, great. Cool. And then last week, Joel discussed the concept of prayer as incense, or prayer as worship. And he explored the spiritual nature of prayer. He emphasized that prayer is not only about us, but it is primarily about God. He illustrated how prayer functions as worship and how our prayers rise to God like incense, symbolizing our connection to Him. He also talked about prayer being a place where we are fully exposed, vulnerable, and yet accepted and formed by God. We're going to spend a little more time sort of discussing that aspect of a relationship with God today. As we dive into the concept of prayer as an act of intimacy with God. I think we can all say, like, we understand that we're in a relationship with God. But what does that relationship look like? Is it the same kind of relationship a husband and wife share, or a father and his son, or friends? What is the level of intimacy that we give to our relationship with God? How often do we think about prayer as a means to deeply know God? Show of hands. Is that where we go, few of us? Do we believe that being in a deep relationship changes us? So, I want to be completely transparent with y'all. Prayer is not my strong suit. Until I met my wife, it was sort of on the back burner of things. We did it before we ate. We'd sometimes do it before bedtime. And I think I went through a phase where I wouldn't pray before a meal because I was like, God created food. It's supposed to be good for me. Why am I going to ask Him to make it good for me? But it wasn't until I met my wife, and I'm going to tell this story to sort of illustrate what prayer was to me and how engaging with an intimate relationship with God has changed my life and my walk with Jesus. So, we got married. And you know how, like, everyone has their, like, before-bed rituals? And, like, you don't know these things until you, like, move in with someone. You're like, yeah, everyone just brushes their teeth, washes their face, and then, you know, the normal things, and then we hop in bed, we go to sleep. Boom, done deal, right? So typically in our home, I'm like the paranoid one that, like, kids are in bed, Cameo's, you know, finishing washing her face, and I'm gonna, like, make the loop around the house and check all the locks, make sure the gas is off on the stove, like, all the things that I'm like, we're gonna fall asleep and this place is gonna burn down, someone's gonna come in and get us. So I do that. I'm the guy that does that. I walk around. Last thing I do is I turn off all the lights because I'm very strange, and if, like, there's a light on somewhere in the house, even if my door's closed, it's, like, on, and I can't sleep. So normally I end up in the kitchen turning the light off, and that's, like, across the house from our room. So tell me if this is, so my kids ask this, is this a dude thing? Like, can we not see at night? Or is this just like, I have terrible vision? I have terrible vision. It's a guy thing? Can all you guys see at night? All right. Well, this is a Joey thing. So anyway, okay, I have terrible vision, and at night it is, like, exponentially worse. Like, lights go off, and I might as well be blindfolded. So I start doing this thing. It's like a Marco Polo thing. I'm like, Cameo! I wait for the call, and I'm like, how am I going to get to the bedroom? I can't see anything. Like, I'm tired. I've been working all day. Like, I just want to go to sleep. And I'm like, Cameo! No response. Okay. So I, like, slowly make my way through the house, and, like, sometimes it's, like, a door, like, straight in the middle of my face, or, like, I trip over dogs or step on Legos, and it's like, by the time I get to the bedroom, I'm pissed. And I'm like, babe, I've been calling your name to help me get to the bed without dying. Still no response. I was like, all right, she fell asleep and she doesn't care. I could have died and whatever. So I start making my way to my side of the bed, and I trip over something on the ground. And it's my wife. And she's kneeled on the ground, face down, praying. Now, you would think, like any sensible husband, would be like, oh, so sweet. But no, I'm like, dude, I'm pissed. You just tripped me, I fell, and you're just here praying. You didn't even care that I'm lost in our house. So, marriage goes on. We're still good. We start having kids. We start, like, not being able to hang out all the time because we have kids. So, like, after the kids go to bed, it's like, hangout time, you know, cue up New Girl, sit on the couch, eat some cheesecake, like all that kind of stuff. So the rituals they continue with kids, and we put the kids to sleep, and normally she's the one that prays with the kids, and I'll, you know, walk out to the couch, sit down, turn on Reno 911, all the things we shouldn't be watching, and I'll just sit there and wait. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm like, these are long prayers with the children. And I'm like, okay, maybe she fell asleep with the baby. It's been a long day. She fell asleep. And here goes again, walk into the bedroom, check and seeing what's going on. And there she is, on the floor, face down, praying. Now, I didn't understand this. My whole Christian life was about how thick of a book I could read or how much Hebrew I knew. It was filled with, like, my time with Jesus was how much knowledge I could cram into my brain, how much theology I could understand. Am I checking the interlinear to make sure I'm translating this word right? But what I was missing was being face down on the floor in God's presence. And it was in those moments that God really convicted me. Just like this week, when I was so busy and I kept pushing off writing this sermon, he was just saying, dude, I'm ready to meet you on the floor. And let's wrestle in silence. And let's take a step away from life and just be with me. So instead of prayer and intimacy and time with God being an obstacle for me, I should have walked into that room and tripped over my wife and fell face first at the feet of Jesus. That instead of letting the mindless distractions of screens and entertainment fill my spare time, that I would allow God to fill those spaces. I mean, I wasn't lacking in knowledge. I was lacking in a relationship, closeness with him. And the God of the Bible, he wants us to know him. He wants to be near to us. He sent his son Jesus to make a way for us to know him intimately. And prayer is a huge part of how we are transformed and shaped into the image of Christ. So if we are willing to let ourselves be inconvenienced, he wants to know us. So I just want to spend a couple minutes reading some scriptures that just sort of highlight God's intimacy with his people. So if you have a Bible, open them up. I want to hear flipping of pages. It will be on the screen, though, but I still want to hear flipping of pages. That sounded really like guilt trippy. If you have a Bible. If you don't have a Bible, take the Bible in the pew, please. Thank you, Benjamin. I'll have those in my notes next time. John 15, verse 4 through 5. If you're Jason Rumbo, you're going to love me for this one. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. Intimacy with God comes with abiding. It's not a one-time stop. It's a continual relationship. We're all grafted into this family, this relationship with the church and God. And through that abiding, through that oneness, we bear fruit. Psalm 63, 1 through 8. I love that Eric always goes to the Psalms during worship because some pretty amazing stuff there. But it's a Psalm of David. He's currently wandering the wilderness, a fugitive, being chased down by King Saul to be put to death. So, I mean, just put us all in this place. We're like in the middle of the desert with nothing, hiding for our lives. And these are the words that he prays to God. He says, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you. As in a dry and weary land where there is no water, so I have looked upon you in the sanctuary. Behold your power and glory. Because your steadfast love is better than life. My lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. My soul will be satisfied as the fat and rich food, and my mouth will praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you upon my bed and meditate on you in the watches of the night, or you have been my help, and in the shadow of your wings I will sing your joy. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me." I mean, he clearly could be asking God to change his circumstance, get me out of this wilderness, bring me to safety. But in this prayer, it reveals that his desire is not just for provision, but for the presence of God. He understands that intimacy with God satisfies the deepest longings of our souls. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, 17 through 18. And we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory. We'll talk more about unveiled faces a little later. But this is what prayer does for us. This is what having an intimate relationship does. It transforms us. It changes us. James 4:8 says, "Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." And this is the beautiful thing about intimacy. It's not a one-way street. God's not asking us to do something without giving us something in return, and that's himself. But he's saying, if you step near to me, I'm going to come even closer to you. One more verse, Isaiah 55, 6-9. It says, "Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call on him while he is near." Guys, there's an urgency in this intimacy. He doesn't want us to wait. He's ready. He's ready to know you. He wants you to know him. So what does it look like for us to be intimate with God? And I think I'm on page 6. We're getting there, okay? So I got 3 things for us to consider as we end our time together. 1, that intimacy requires vulnerability. Just like in human relationships, intimacy with God requires transparency. Joel hit on this a little bit last week. Yeah, and this is terrifying, isn't it? Like, I just think about, and, sorry, I'm the guy to just talk about my wife all the time, but she's pretty cool. But when we met, there were so many things about me I did not want her to know. And I think that's sometimes how we approach God. There are so many things about my past, about my present, about who I am, that I am scared to let you in. But you know what one of the most liberating experiences in my life was? It was when I let Cameo into my deepest, darkest secrets and sins. She just got closer to me. And I know a lot of you have experienced that with God. That when we let the creator of the universe in our lives, despite where we are, what we've done, who, whatever, he just keeps nudging himself closer to us. And think about this about God. He already knows you completely, regardless of if you're ready to open up to him and be honest with yourself. And he still wants to draw near. The truth about any intimate relationship is this: you will be known. Whether it's on your terms or theirs, who you are will be known. You can't have a close, intimate relationship with anyone, God or human, without being fully known. The beautiful thing about God is he has given us the freedom to initiate this transparency. He's allowing us to open ourselves up to him so that we can experience the freedom we have in Jesus. Let's go back to the Psalms one more time. Psalm 139, 1-2. So another Psalm of David. David's not a great dude. Murder, adultery. things he's probably not wanting to open up to God about. But in all of that, knowing that about himself, he prays this to God. He says, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it." And then he goes on and he talks about even his present circumstance. Read this next section with me as David trying to run away from God because he's ashamed. He says, "Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the utmost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for the darkness is as light with you." God's with us everywhere. He's drawing nearer to us in every moment, in every dark space, in our past, in our present, in our future. He wants to be near to us. The requirement for vulnerability with God, it isn't a clean slate. It's just honesty. Number 2, intimacy leads to transformation. So the word pray in the Hebrew Bible, one of the Hebrew words that is used for the word pray is palel. And it's a verb. And it's always translated in the reflexive tense. So what's the reflexive tense? The reflexive tense are the verbs that describe an action performed by the same person who is receiving it. So imagine it like this. Imagine throwing a ball up in the air and then catching it. You are both the thrower and the receiver. Our prayers are doing something to ourselves. When Cameo's on the floor spending time with Jesus, it's changing her. When Cameo's praying with our children, it's changing her. I think one of the coolest illustrations of what happens when we engage with the presence of God is a story out of Exodus. So Exodus 34. So it's right before the Ten Commandments are given. And Moses and the Israelites are at Mount Sinai, and God's posted up at the top of the mountain. And Moses goes up on behalf of the Israelites. And he's in the presence of God. And he's experiencing an intimate setting, an intimate place, an intimate time with the creator of the universe. And then we'll read Exodus 34:34. It says, "When Moses went in before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And then he came out and told the people of Israel that what he was commanded. The people of Israel would see the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face was shining. And Moses would put the veil over his face again until he went in to speak with him." Being in an intimate relationship with God changes you. In this circumstance, his face was glowing. Now, I don't want any of you guys to go home and start praying in your closet and hope that you come out with a glowing face. But I want us to all live in this moment and realize that that's how drastic of a change being in relationship with God does to you. That you're gonna walk out of these moments and walk into the world, and the world is going to look at you like your face is glowing. And they're not gonna know what to do with it. Moses had to cover his face up with a veil because what was radiating off of him was so powerful, people could not handle it. Two weeks ago, Cameo talked about the temple. And that when Jesus died on the cross, the curtain that separated the Holy of Holies, the place where God's presence had been confined in the temple, it was torn. Symbolizing that now we have access to God's presence in a way that we hadn't had access to God's presence before Jesus. We have access to the top of that mountain now. We don't need Moses to intercede for us. But through Jesus, we are invited to the top of the mountain to experience intimate relationship with God. We are invited into the Holy of Holies. The even better thing is God came down the mountain. That his Spirit has left the Holy of Holies. And he's inside of you if you call yourself a follower of Jesus. So are you spending time in God's presence? Are you walking up the mountain to commune with God? The gate of the garden was hidden, but now it is revealed through Christ, and God is inviting us to walk with him daily. Last point, and then we'll close it out. Intimacy brings assurance and confidence. Let's go back to that Romans passage that Adam read. It says, "For all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer with him in order that we may also be glorified with him." We have received the spirit of adoption. We can cry out to God, Abba, Father. We can. Through intimacy and prayer, we receive the confidence that we are God's children, which transforms our identity and how we live our lives. The things that we were once slaves to, the things that want to continually drag us into fear and shame, no longer have power. We were once intimate with the world, and that intimacy led us into darkness. But through Jesus, we have assurance that no matter what, no matter the depths of our depravity, that we have a Father that we can cry out to, a Father that wants to be near to us. So my question is, do we believe this? Do we believe that we have a God that wants to be close to us? That wants to sit on the floor with you in the dark and hear your deepest, most intimate thoughts? And that through this conversation, this relationship, he wants to transform your heart and mind and make you shine like Moses so you can come down that mountain and share his love with the world. One last thought, and Eric, y'all can come up. Has anyone here climbed a mountain before? Benjamin? Wow. I was not expecting hands, so I applaud you. Was it easy? Climbing a mountain is difficult. It's going to leave a mark. but we are invited into God's presence. And the more and more we choose to climb that mountain to be with him, we become stronger. Have you climbed a mountain more than once? Benjamin? Was it easier the second time? You did not prove my point, sir. Thank you. Hypothetically, if you climb a mountain multiple times, your lungs get stronger. Your body gets stronger. It becomes easier to do what you've already done over and over again. And that's what abiding is. I'm still terrible at it. I hardly am on my face on the ground with God. But he's never stopped asking me to be with him. But there was a man who climbed up a mountain with a cross on his back. And then he climbed up that cross to die for you. And when he died, he gave you complete access to the transforming presence of God. It was that same transforming presence that raised Jesus from the grave to conquer death and to give you life more abundant than you can ever understand. And all he's asking is that you draw near. Y'all pray with me? Father, I just thank you that you've never left us. That you sent your son Jesus, the physical manifestation of you being near to us, to give his life for us, to live the life that we so often fail at. Lord, that he raised from the dead so that we could be raised to new life. New life with abundant access to your presence. New life with a Father that we can just cry our hearts out to. Lord, that I pray that as we leave here today, Lord, that we would feel closer to you, that your Spirit would change us, transform us, lead us to you daily. Lord, that we would know that you are waiting for us on the floor. I pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.